welcome back to the Blissful Badger and my March Madness Army Showcase Showdown. Throughout this month, we're going to look at all of my armies, and I'd like you to rate these armies on 5 criteria on a scale of 1 to 10. And then, at the end of the month, we're going to tally up all of the scores and see which army is the best out of my collection. So what are these criteria? 1. The paint scheme. Is my army cohesive? What level have I painted it to? Do these colors work for this army? 2. Playability. How did I go selecting models for this army? Is this a viable army on the battlefield? 3. My reason for owning it. Do I have a good justification for owning this army? 4. Theming. How much does this army fit their lore? Have I built this army to a standard that makes sense for what the army does in the lore? And 5, conversions and customization. What conversions did I make to this army? How did I make it my own? So which army are we checking out today? Today, we're going to take a look at my Adeptus Mechanicus, Grey Knights, and Imperial Agents. So we're going to go with the easy one first. My Imperial Agents don't really exist as an army. It is basically a old school metal Eversor assassin and an old school Inquisitor in Terminator armor. Both are metal models. I painted them up for the fun of it, and then I used them in the tournament that I played in, where I was allowed only one use of each datasheet. I used the Inquisitor in Terminator armor as a regular Inquisitor because, well, it doesn't exist in the rules anymore. But that's okay. Then I have a unit of Imperial Navy breachers. One guy has to have a leg glued back on, and I haven't done anything with the colors or the bases. Something in the ship-wide thing, you know? Haven't really decided. Maybe some plastic canvas used as grading? I don't know. But it's something. I do want to paint them up. I think I'm going to try a bright color scheme, maybe some yellows or oranges, and maybe like a light blue. Orange and light blue seems like it might work. I don't know. Then I have some judges. I definitely want to paint up the Exaction Squad as the 2000 AD judges, because that seems like the right color scheme. Just need to build them. And the goodest boy. And then we have the Death Corps of Krieg kill team, which, once I build it up, I am going to paint as though it is Golden Age Deadpool. Because that red and black and gold look should look really good on some Kriegers. Am I right? Oh yeah. So, that is all of my Imperial Agents. Not a whole lot, but each one has their scheme, and I know what I'm going to do with them. I just need to get around to it. And then we have my Grey Knights. Ah, yes, the Grey Knights. At the beginning of 8th edition,
a friend and I challenged each other to a nice, simple race to 2,000 points painted. And we both went with Imperium. I went with Grey Knights, and he went with a custom chapter of Space Marines. And it took us almost 3 years to actually get these built and painted. Life happened, but we continued, and we both did finish. I believe I got mine painted before his, but I think he based before I did. So, I don't know. We're both about the same on that. But 8th edition Grey Knights, and even 9th edition, had quite a few differences to the modern Grey Knight faction. And, of course, before I got a Castellan Crow new model, I did kit bash up my own version, along with all of the other characters that you were allowed to have. So I have a Voldus and a brother captain and a Stern, Apothecary, and Keldor Drago. But overall, they were fun kit bashes. And then to go along with that, I built a unit of Paladins. I could always run them as Terminators if I needed to. They're same base size and everything. I have quite a few regular Strike Squad. 10 with teleporting capability. Another 10 teleporters that I still have to finish building and painting. A couple of heavy weapons. And 2 baby carriers that I just need to paint. Having them in subassemblies is quite a few pieces, and I know I'm not going to be able to paint everything if I assembled it all first, so here it is. So I love the color scheme. I do have 2,000 points painted here. And I think they look really good for a very simple color scheme. I used 2 different metallics so that 2 different metallic silvers so that the different details were brought a little bit more forward. And overall, they're not a bad color scheme. I could probably do better now. The skin tones definitely need a little bit of work. But overall, I did build and paint an army to battle ready standards. And because of the rule changes in 10th edition, I believe my next goal for the Grey Knights is to just finish building and painting what I have. I don't really have any intent to go beyond this. I hear that there might be a refresh in the future, and honestly, I'm not that worried about adding to this army, especially with the teleporting rules. I was kind of disappointed with that as an army rule, and maybe they'll change that in the codex, but this was an army designed for a different edition, and I like having it, and I like that I can have it stored in the cases and have them if I ever want to play with them. But overall, I think this army is just about complete once I get these last couple of models built and painted. And honestly, it feels nice to have a completion point in some of my armies because others, I know I don't have everything I need, and it's going to take a lot of effort to get it to where I want it. So, speaking of, here is my Ad Mech. And if you notice, it is almost all still sprue or bits in bags ready to be built. Except for 4 special weapons and 2 automata. So I knew I wanted to do Ad Mech after I had collected several things. It wasn't an immediate interest in this army, but when I got some models in the original Kill Team box set, I was not that worried about it. I was willing to trade them off if someone had a better option. And then from there, I got the Adeptus Mechanicus half of Forge Bane with the 2 armigers. And so I ended up having a little bit more in the collection. And so I was like, okay, well, I might one day want this army, so I'll keep these models. And then I had the option to get one of the Christmas box sets at a good deal that had the Taraxi, the Sulphur Hounds, the Rust Stalkers, and an Iron Strider. And it was less than the cost of the modern Combat Patrol, and you got more in it. It's crazy how that works. So I did end up getting that, and then later on, I realized how much money this would actually cost me, and it went to the sidelines, but I had the opportunity to purchase the previous magazine's additional models, and so I got a couple more characters and some more Rangers or Vanguard. And then I found this Combat Patrol at a swap meet, still in shrink wrap, for $80. And I went, hey, I actually almost have 2,000 points here now. And the crazy thing is, after all of this, I still don't actually have 2,000 points of Ad Mech. This army is so points inefficient for models. So, one of my plans is I'm going to kit bash several of the characters that look mostly like regular Vanguard. I want to do a couple of the snipers on stilts. I want to do a couple of marshals, and between that and what I have here, I should just barely be able to get to 2,000 points, which is still quite a limited force. Now, my plan is to try some wet blending. I want to do blue to purple cloaks and robes on this army. We'll see if that actually is how I make it. As you can see, I have nothing to show for it yet, and I know to do a test model or 3 before I actually settle on a color scheme. But it's mostly a conversion army at this point, and I'm not selling it off because if I ever did decide I wanted to do Ad Mech in the future, I'm not going to take out a second mortgage. As it is, this is one of the most expensive armies I've had, and that's even with all of the sales and discounts that I've purchased so far.
In addition to that, I think I might convert up a Iron Strider from one of my Star Wars Legion's walkers, because they're about the same scale. If I ever need another Iron Strider, I'm not going to buy one because they're more dollars than points these days for this kit, which is just wild. But at the same time, the majority of my force here is more dollars than points. So, yeah, GW, let's make an army that people might want and then just make it so expensive.
If you would like to see a full breakdown of my army list, there is a link to a spreadsheet in the description below. Subscribe if you haven't so that you don't miss any future videos. I also want to thank my patrons and supporters for making these videos possible. And until next time, I hope you find your bit of bliss.